Now, several things happening all at the same time. We've got the conversation around Eskom in Parliament that you heard a moment ago. We've also got the President's response to claims made yesterday by the leader of COPE, Cyril Ramaphosa. At the same time, big developments in Northwest, where the ANC says it will appeal again, a second judgment that would allow Supra Mahumapelo to take control of the Provincial Executive Committee in the province. We've invited Professor Andre Duvenhage, Professor of Politics at Northwest University, to come and join us tonight. Professor, thank you so much. Let's start first with the comment made today by President Cyril Ramaphosa. This was in Parliament and was his response to what Cyril Ramaphosa said to him yesterday about the claim that he was a sellout during apartheid.
I have never, ever been a spy. I've never worked with the enemy. All I've ever done in my life is my commitment to the people of our country. That's all.
Professor Duvenhage, I mean, a strong claim there. Obviously, he went through the history of his own role in the struggle, the time that he spent at least 6 months in solitary confinement. Was that a comprehensive response for you?
Yes, I think it was comprehensive, but I'm not sure he's going to convince all the relevant audiences. I think there is an element that people would like to know more about what the President did in his previous time. And I must also tell you, there are a lot of rumors going around about a lot of politicians. And I have heard the same rumors with regard to Mr. Musia Lekota himself. So in that sense, I'm viewing this as a move to basically position COPE from the side of Lekota. And Lekota at this point needs support. So he's doing a lot of controversial things in order to position COPE. I'm not sure that he's going to retain his seats in Parliament.
He only has 2 seats, so he would literally get fewer than 150,000 votes if that were to happen.
Yes, that is the scenario we are looking at the moment.
Okay, this focus on our history and on the history of the liberation movement, could it in a very strange way perhaps work to Ramaphosa's advantage, if I can take a contrary view? In other words, there have been these questions before. There are questions, as you say, about many leaders. Now he's had a big national platform to explain what he did, to address these claims. He's reminded South Africa, if you like, of what he actually did in the role that he played. Could that not help in some way?
Mr. Ramaphosa is an excellent strategist, and I believe he's going to use this to his advantage. I have no doubt that at the moment his position is very difficult, and you are right, this will give him an audience to take the process forward, to fight an election campaign in this context. But still, we must remember what Steenhuisen told him. Don't worry about the space. Look at your back. There are serious enemies behind you at this point in time. And we know that Mr. Jacob Zuma has a lot of files about all his opponents. He was the head of security and intelligence within the ANC, and he will use anything at his disposal to work with his opponents. So in that sense, I think he can use the opportunity to a certain extent, but it's a high-risk scenario for him as well.
Let's talk about Eskom for a moment. In a way, this is a crisis of governance. Everyone wants the same thing. They want there to be enough electricity and they want the lights to work all the time. And yet, if you look through the ANC and the Alliance, there seem to be big divisions on how to achieve that. Some people want to retrench, or dare I use the P word, privatize. Most people seem to be against that. It seems that there are actually big divisions just on the Eskom issue, which is the burning national issue of the moment.
Yes, if we just contextualize it, there was a very bad relationship between Jacob Zuma, the SACP, and COSATU. And when Ramaphosa came in, he tried to reconcile that relationship. And I must tell you, he made it a lot better. But at this point in time, looking at the political economy of the country, there's not a lot of room for him to make ideological decisions. He needs to make very, very difficult decisions at this point in time. So he cannot go the way of COSATU at this point. He needs to take other decisions. The way he's going to play it politically is away from privatization in terms of investment, etc., precisely what he did. But at the end of the day, this is a catch-22. Because if he go the way of privatization, strong intervention, then there will be reaction. And already COSATU said, if they are not going the way they prescribe, then they are not going to vote for him during the election. And we know that the election at the moment is very difficult for the ANC. My own assessment is we are talking about a mid-50, and that is only if they can keep unity, and unity within the ANC together with COSATU and the SACP.
But COSATU and the SACP have said this a million times. I mean, COSATU is always making this threat. It never actually does it.
I am not so sure if they are not going to continue with the other line this time. You are right, they are a pressure group within the bigger context of the ANC. But we have already seen that the NUMSA group broke away, and they are establishing their own radical socialist party. And at the moment, COSATU is not happy with this, let's say, class of 96 idea that they are getting from the perspectives of Ramaphosa. In that sense, and because the ANC is in trouble at the moment, I believe they can play it in another direction.
All right, let's talk about the politics of Northwest now. It's perhaps almost as complicated as the politics of Eskom. You had a judgment yesterday with Supra Mahumapelo. It was basically his provincial executive committee won a ruling that would enforce an earlier ruling that would say that he would now go and be the leader of the ANC in Northwest. The ANC, from what I understand, there have been meetings today at Luthuli House. No one's been available to speak to us to find out what's actually going to happen. The fact that both sides seem to be fighting this so strongly, and by both sides, I mean both ANCs, Mahumapelo's ANC in Northwest and Luthuli House representing the NEC in this case, they're fighting very strongly. This means there's something at stake here.
I think there is, to a certain extent, maybe the future of the ANC at stake, and also, to a certain extent, the election. And I will motivate it in such a way, this is in Province Northwest, but it's a reflecting on the national politics in the country. And at the moment, the court decision is changing the balance of power within the structures of the ANC. My own assessment is that the Zuma group, together with ACE, Supra, and a number of others, are very influential. And they can, to a certain extent, bring about changes within the structures of the ANC. And this court decision is going to give them a lot of momentum. And for Cyril, it is critical to keep the ANC together. If he would like to win an election, he must bring everyone to the table, including COSATU and the SACP. And Zuma and Supra and ACE know that he is in trouble. And I believe this small shift is psychologically a very strong sign for Zuma to need and work on this process and continue. And I think they are putting a lot of pressure on the Ramaphosa lines at this point in time. And my own assessment of the situation in Northwest is that at the grassroots level, on the branches, and that's aligned with the court decision, the support is going the way of Supra Mahumapelo. In that sense, he's a very influential, strong man, and I believe they haven't lost the fight yet. Their plan A is to win within the structures of the ANC, force Ramaphosa towards a National General Council meeting. That is plan A. Plan B is work back. And if it's not working within the ANC, they will go with all these pop-up parties, the ATM, to undermine the support of the ANC.
Okay, so we have all of this going on. In the meantime, there's governance in Northwest. You've got Professor Job Makoro as the Premier. If Supra Mahumapelo actually wins all of these court battles, and he's won the two so far, I mean, can you see Premier Makoro being held politically accountable by Mahumapelo? Surely that's a recipe for difficulty.
Well, it's clear that there are two centers of power. On the one side, it is Job Makoro, the provincial task team, and what he tried to do. And on a normative level, I must tell you, he is doing a good job. He's trying to reconcile a lot of conflicts. He's trying to get government and governance going. In that sense, it is positive. But we know that the political power, to a large extent, is with Supra and his group. And they are still very influential. So it's a case of two centers of power, and these two centers of power are now meeting in Luthuli House. And I must tell you, for unity within the ANC, this is very critical.
I'm going to be as quick as I can with this next point. Luthuli Mahumapelo, the first Deputy General Secretary of the South African Communist Party, he apologized today for comments that he had made about Robert Mangaliso Sobukwe, in which he had said that the apartheid government had almost treated him better than it had treated other freedom fighters belonging to the ANC. We do, I think, have a brief moment to listen to what Luthuli Mahumapelo said today.
What I was expressing was a view of the apartheid regime, and I've got evidence to back it up, that they treated him as a political prisoner and they treated our leaders as slaves and terrorists because they were communists. That's the point I made.
There was a wholehearted apology, an unreserved apology from Mahumapelo to the point that he had made earlier in the week. This is all showing us, Prof, with that incident, with the claims from Lakota this week, that the history is still very much alive in the liberation movements. It's having a very big impact on some of the politics of today.
Stephen, the more we are into change, the more people are reverting back to history. And in a sense, political parties are looking for their identity during these times of change. And that is why we are getting this reference to history. That is where Lakota is coming from, and the same with Mpila. But I can believe there is a possibility that the old government would have liked to influence political processes to get alternatives to the ANC. In that sense, there may have been influences in this context. So I'm not throwing this from the table straightforward. I think there are probably political influences on a certain level coming from the old government that may direct the processes of conflict. That was their strategy also during the 70s and 80s.
Professor Andre Duvenhage, thank you very much indeed for making the trip from Tlokwe tonight. I really do appreciate it. The Professor of Politics from the University of Northwest. Sabisa Mokwetla has more for you.